So if you remember at the end of the last video when we were at Donington, I said I'm going to be making some changes to the front suspension on the Fiesta. Some of you commented saying looking forward to that. Well, it's not upgrades, it's downgrades. So let me explain to you what's going on. Right, so what you can see here is standard ball joints. Now at the moment we've got the hard race extended ball joints for the roll center correction, which allowed me to lower the car more, get a better setup. They haven't worked out. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see I put a video on a good few weeks back where it was really floppy. I had a bit of a knocking noise ever since I fitted them, but I'd done so many things on the suspension I didn't know what it was. I did find out what it was. It wasn't actually the ball joint pin knocking, but it was the ball joint itself just having a little bit of movement in the hub, in the wishbone. But anyway, what have happened with them, let's say the pin's gone really floppy after one track day, and it's the passenger side, so it's the one that's taking the most load in the corner end. So I think at number 300 miles was not ideal, is it? Got in touch with a supplier, Rival Motorsport, which were fantastic in dealing. They contacted Hard Race. Hard Race got back, said they've had a number of complaints, they don't want to replace them, they want a refund. Because they don't trust that it won't happen again. Now I know of a few people who've had problems as well. I was told after I fitted them, someone sent me a video, but it was too late by then I bought them, of exactly the same problem. So pretty disappointing, because it means now that all my bump steer correction, everything's going to be out when we go back to standard size ball joints. So we got to redo all of that. So what I'm going to do, you've seen me strip this down so many times, take the wishbones off, I'll show you what the ball joints are like, and then we'll go from there. But let me show you a couple of things that I noticed from the last track day. Now first thing, back pads. Remember these were new before Castle Combe? Well, I smoked through most of that pad at Donington, even though it was wet. Now the brake is dragging a little bit, not much, just a little bit of drag here, so I gotta look at that. I don't think it's the sliders, because I normally keep them clean and tidy, so unless one I've gummed up, I don't know, but we look at that. Not in this video, been another video. The other thing, the discs I'm running, genuine forward, they got quite a bit of crazing in them. I've been assured that it's nothing to worry about and they will last. Now the last discs I had that crazed like that, one track day later, they cracked right through. As for the pads, I'm going to be swapping these out, and there's plenty of life in that, because I'm going to be testing EBC RPX pads. They've done a deal with me to run a test on them. We'll still be keeping these for future, but I'm going to see what the EBC pads are like, so in time to come I'll have another option of upgrading, because to be honest I don't want to pay over £300 for front pads every time, and the EBC are half the price. So we'll see how that goes when we get to it. But for now I'm going to whip off the wishbones and I'll show you what the ball joints are like. Alright, both the wishbones are off, ball joints are out, and I'm going to show you what they're like now. Put you down by here. Right, so this one is the better one. Now that's reasonably stiff, not as stiff as I would like it. Now that was the driver's side that wasn't taking so much load in the corners, and this is the passenger one. Look at this, terrible. So that is not a good sign of my ball joint. Now the knocking noise is where it's sitting on the side. I can't feel any play in the actual ball, but it's just, look at that. That's not going to last long before it starts knocking. Right, so they're off. We're going to replace with these first line make, probably a rubbish make, I don't know. They were like 32 quid for the two of them. Let me know in the comments if they're poor make, I don't know. He said in the shop they're alright, but it's probably a lot of rubbish. Anyway, these got to go back. So like I said, that's the end of roll center correction, because nobody else makes them, only Hard Race. big shame. What I'm going to do now, get these ball joints back in the wishbones, and then we're going to whip the strut off to get the spring out, and then we're going to start doing bump steer measurements. But I won't be doing the bump steer today because I'm working on this after work, so I'll be back another day. But what I'm going to do now is really quickly get them in, go from there. Right, so just like that, the ones are in, that one's done as well. If you're wondering what that pipe is, it's just some extra cooling for the brakes that I added. Now, the only thing that does concern me with these type of ball joints, and what I think was happening with the other ones, was they're a press fit, but you put this circlip on, but there's a slight gap. Now I think what was happening before with the other ones was you get a slight bit of movement and have a little clunk every now and again, so we can see if these do the same. What I'm going to do now is get whichever one is the passenger side on, then drop that strut, get the spring out. I was just putting this on and I definitely found the clank. Let me show you. If I grab this, see if you can hear it from there. I got all it quite tight, so it's not the easiest, but you can see it. Get a light on it. Right, so this is what was happening obviously with the other joints. See how there's a slight movement? See a bit of a gap opening here, look, and it closes up, and that's the little clank, so we got to do something about that. Right, so this is the fix that I've come up with. Can you see in there? I put one of these. Now these are the boot retaining clips from the hard race ball joints. Now I had some spares of them because I had split rubbers, so I had some extra rubbers sent out, and I bought some spares actually. So that's now tightened that up, so that circlip is tight, so now we shouldn't get no wobble. The other option was to maybe weld them in, but I think we'll just go with that, give that a try, see what that does. It's not ideal. I think the best thing to do would be to just buy some genuine forward arms and have the ball joint already in. Seems like once you change them you give yourself some headaches, but I'm pretty sure that will work. So what I'm going to do now is go and pop that on, carry on what I was doing. Day 2, I'm back. Right, what I've got to now, everything's back on. I've had the strut off, took the spring out, but now what I want to do is work out ride heights. So before we went lower because we could, because I had the road center ball joints in. I don't want to raise the car too much now. In the past I played it quite conservative, quite safe, so I didn't go too low, but now I want to get as close to the limit of how low I can go without affecting the roll center, or should we say making it bad. So I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. Right, so what we've got, when you look under you, let me straighten you up, you're on a wonk. Right, I'm going to be putting a spirit level across the floor here. I've already done it actually, I'm just showing you what I did. Right, then from the top of the spirit level, your reference point is the center line of that bolt. Then you're looking at the center line of the ball inside the joint, so you have to use a bit of imagination here. So I'm using this area, this lip here, we call it the center line. It's a little high, it's probably down here a touch. So what you do is spirit level on the floor, take a measurement from the center line like that, take spirit level, then jack this up to a ride height roughly where this point is closer to the ground, is lower. Now I'm taking it very close, I'm going about 8 to 10 mil, so this point here is going to be 8 to 10 mil closer to the floor than that pivot point there, so that will give us the lowest ride height without mucking up a roll center. So what that meant was, if you remember when I measured right out before, I used the socket on here, measure from the bottom of that to the wheel arch. That gave me, I think it's 345. I done this last night, so I'm going off memory from that. Now if you remember when I put the roll center ball joints on, I went to that ride out of 345. So even with the roll center ball joints, I could have still gone quite a bit lower, but I didn't want to go too low. So what that means is I can pretty much run that same ride out without ending up with a catastrophic roll center problem. Next thing is the steering rack. Now we put the spacers in for the bump steer. So we've now got to look at how will that all work. Now because we're staying at the same ride out, theoretically this shaft arm is dropped now. It's pretty much parallel to the floor, so theoretically the bump steer should be fine, but we have to measure it to be sure because we've changed the arc point of the lower arm. So unless I test it, it's all guesswork. So what I'm going to do now is set this up, put my bump steer gauge on and see what we get. Right, so just so as you're not confused, I've set it up to recheck my measurements, and I'll show you what I was meaning now, because I know what happened. You'll probably be thinking, what was he on about? Right, well, let me show you. Right, so spirit level on the floor, that's level. Now what I need to do, measure from the top of the spirit level to the centre of that bolt. That is around about 21.3 millimeters, almost 21 and a half. Then we come here, measure from the spirit level to an imaginary center point of the ball joint. So like I said, we can assume it's somewhere between this line here and this bit there. So I'm gonna roughly go around there. It's hard to say exactly where the center of the ball is, so you have to use a little bit of imagination. I've based it on measuring the width in the center there, how big the ball will be, blah blah blah. Anyway, so that gives me about 20 centimeters, 200 mil. So that is going to be just over 10 mil, 10 to 13 mil of difference from the pivot point here to there. So whenever you're doing this, don't worry about the angle of the arm. That doesn't matter. It's the center of the pivot point there to the center of the pivot point here. So now we know that's right. Right, so my homemade bump steer gauge is back on. Now I've shown all of this before in a previous video. It's the first time you're watching it. I've shown how I set it up, went through everything. Just in case you're wondering, they're just weights to keep it still. They're the pink tins. So yeah, what I'm going to do, go through the measurements, and then I'll just show you the results, because like I say, I've shown it all before, so see you soon. So the results are in, and it's not what I was hoping for. Come and have a look. Alright, so I wrote it down on paper here. So bump, which is compression, travel up. So at 10 mil, we got 120, which is 1.2 mil of toe in. Then it just gets worse. 2.2 mil, 20, 30s, 3 mil. I didn't even bother at 40 mil, and the pattern was going wrong, so I just jumped 20 mil. So at 50 mil compression, we're at 5 mil of toe in. So the spacers will not work without them ball joints. Rebound was following the same pattern for toe out. At 10 mil it was 0.7, then by 20 mil it was 230. I give up. I knew enough by that point that the spacer's got to come off. So what I'm going to do now, I'll be getting rid of the spacers, putting it right back to standard, so the rack will just get bolted down as it did before. So I could get into perfecting the bump steer and trying to get it perfect by going through new measurements of rack spacers. You know, I'm just not going to bother. I just can't be bothered. So what I'm going to do, back to standard, just forget it, just move on, chalk it up as an experience. But hey, what, at least I know now if I ever go back to them ball joints. Maybe if Hard Race make more endurable versions, or someone else does, and I know I can go back to them spacers and I'll have them on the shelf. But for now, this is all going back as it was. I'm just going to crack on with that off camera. Next video, I'm going to be looking into doing the brakes, so stay tuned for that. Right, so I think that's enough of me waffling. I'm not going to say hopefully you enjoyed it, because there's not much to enjoy, is it? But there you are, another informative video, say. So thanks very much for watching this one. See you on the next one. Bye.